This 1-hour webinar is appropriate for librarians and other faculty working with both novice and advanced researchers. This is our first Ithaca webinar focused on the research tool, so we want you to leave knowing both how to use it and how it was designed and built. We've created a handout for the webinar that you can refer back to afterwards. Kelsey is sharing that link to the handout in the chat now. You will find in it links to all the resources that we mentioned, so you can refer back to it or share it with your colleagues and other users. I will post this again later in the webinar as well. Now, let's get started with some introductions. My name is Dana Howard, and I'm the Senior Education Outreach Manager at Ithaca. I'm joined by Partner and User Support Specialist Nicole Green, who will be addressing questions today during the webinar and giving you a demonstration of the research tool. Our colleague, Kelsey Schaefer, Partner and User Education Lead, will be presenting. Kelsey and Nicole have honed their expertise on this tool during the last 2 years of its development, and I'm excited to hear from them today. Before I turn it over to Kelsey, I want to let you know that this presentation is being recorded. And besides the recording being available in your handout by Monday, it will also be on YouTube. When we post it on YouTube, we will include a link to a table of contents in the description beneath the video, where you can jump ahead to any relevant sections as needed. All attendees will also receive a recording as a GoToMeeting link in the follow-up email. After you exit the webinar today, a survey will appear on your screen. We'd appreciate all feedback that you can share with us. If you don't have time to answer the survey immediately, it will also be emailed to you in about an hour. Whether you respond to the survey immediately or later in the day, I want to let you know that we hope you can share ways our webinars are or can be more useful for your work. Please let us know what topics you would like to see covered in more depth and any other thoughts you may have about our webinars. We read every comment and we use them to shape our future work. Now, I'll pass the microphone over to Kelsey and I'll repost that handout for those of you who may have just stepped in a bit late. Kelsey.
All right, thanks, Dana. Here is our agenda for today. We will start by introducing the AI research tool and providing some background for its development, including a timeline of how we got to this point of enablement for all institutions. Then we'll do a demo of how to access and use the tool. This section will also include information specifically for administrators regarding how to enable and disable the tool for your institution. We will then take a dive into how the tool was designed and built, especially some of the guardrails that are in place. And then we're going to talk about how people are using the tool and some example queries and also think about some ideas for integrating it into the classroom, both into existing assignments and when creating new assignments. And then finally, we'll have a Q&A session. So please keep in mind that you can enter questions during the presentation. We'll keep track of them. We'll answer some in the Q&A verbally and also some in the Q&A that's part of GoTo. If you have specific questions about your own institution, we recommend contacting support@jstor.org. So I am going to take us on a little journey with the research tool. And I want to start with a little bit about JSTOR because our development of the tool and all of our products are guided by our values. So what is JSTOR? We are a nonprofit digital library with a mission to improve access to knowledge and education for people around the world. And with that as our starting point, once AI came onto the scene, we wondered, how might we use AI to improve the experience of evaluating and understanding content for our users? Could we make a tool that allows users to actively interact with content, query it, test connections, surface insights? We are not interested in AI replacing deep engagement and critical thinking, but we are looking at how we can keep content central to the research process, not just another search result. And so we started working on what became JSTOR's AI research tool. So if you haven't had a chance to use the tool yet, this is a first look and a summary. In practice, JSTOR's AI research tool shows up on the item page for journal articles, book chapters, and research reports on JSTOR. You engage with it to find out more about what's in the article. There are built-in buttons to identify key points and arguments from the text or recommend related articles and topics. And then you can also use the free text field to ask specific questions. For each answer, the tool provides citations or direct links to the place in the text where it found that content that contributed to the answer. The idea here is that the JSTOR research tool is designed to support a researcher's existing content discovery workflow by helping them get to the relevant items and then discover more items. The tool is supported by a combination of technology, including AI and also other forms of machine learning, retrieval augmented generation, natural language searching. I'll talk more about what all of those terms mean later in this talk. The tool is not currently on the JSTOR search, but later in the webinar, I'm also going to talk about some future developments for the tools, which includes more integration into search. I want to talk through the timeline of how we got to the present iteration of the research tool and its users, so you know the research and engagement that went into it. We started development on the tool in early 2023, and it's been in constant progress since then, with a slow rollout to aid our learning. So first we had individual beta users who requested access to the tool. And then we had a dozen institutions who were early beta institutions who assisted with evaluating the tool at the institutional level. And then we brought in a larger batch of institutions to help understand scale and cost. And so that brings us to now. As of July 18th, 2025, all JSTOR participating institutions and all of their users have access to the tool. And we're rolling this out at no additional cost to our institutions. We are really excited to make this available, but we also understand that every institution has their own relationship to AI. So we've made it so that in the JSTOR admin portal, there's a checkbox that allows you to enable or disable the research tool for all of your institutional users. And I'm going to talk more about that in detail later in the webinar. So in the next section, we are going to show you how to use the research tool and also, again, the tools and resources for JSTOR admin around the research tool. And I'll hand it over to Nicole for a closer look.
Thanks, Kelsey. First, let's talk about access to the research tool. So to use the research tool, you need to be first linked to your institution and then logged into your personal JSTOR account. We are going to talk through both of these points so you can help yourself and others troubleshoot, as this is one of the first times that we've made a feature reliant on being logged into your personal JSTOR account. And of course, if you're running into any trouble, you can always get in touch with our support team at support@jstor.org. To check your link with your institution, look at the banner at the top of any page on JSTOR. If it says access provided by, you are already linked to your institution. This should look like the top part of the slide. If the banner reads, have library access, log in through your library, you should click on the login link in the banner. Then search for your institution and log in with your institutional credentials. Then check to see if you are logged into your personal JSTOR account. In the top right corner, after the question button, if you are logged in, you should see your name or email instead of the register and login buttons. If you don't see your email, you are either not logged in or you need to make an account. A JSTOR account is free and it will ensure seamless access no matter where you are logging in from, and it is required to use the JSTOR AI research tool. After you are linked to your institution and logged in, you are ready to use the research tool. So I'm going to show you what that looks like live. So first, I'm going to type in my query, and I'm interested in literary cats, so I'm going to type that in. And I think I'm going to choose the first result. This one looks interesting to me if I'm thinking about adding sources about what it might mean for a cat to be present in a piece of literature. So the tool will show up on each item page on the right side of the page adjacent to the document. Above the tool window, there is a toggle to turn the tool on and off. So if you toggle that tool off, the decision will stick, so it should stay off until you turn it back on again. If you do not see the words AI Research Tool at all, check whether you are logged in with your personal account by checking up here again. You can also contact support at JSTOR.org if you are having problems. So the conversation with the research tool starts automatically with an explanation of how my search term relates to the document that I clicked on. So in this case, it's pointing me to where literary cats, which was my search term, is mentioned in relation to the article's theme, that cats are versatile characters in literature. You can also learn more about the text as a whole by choosing one of the prompts provided by the research tool or by supplying your own. So the first supplied prompt, Show Abstract, will show me the abstract that's included with the article. If the text doesn't have an abstract, the button will instead say, what is this text about? And it will tell me the key points and arguments of the text. You can also click Show Related Content, which suggests items in JSTOR that contain similarities in texts. This is different from the Related Items tab in the document metadata, which will suggest other text based on usage patterns. So that lives under here. When the research tool is open, that metadata will be after the article as it is now, instead of next to it. I can also click Recommended Topics, which suggests key concepts that are relevant to the text. So this can help jumpstart additional research by helping you narrow down your topic or provide ideas for further exploration. I like to think about this one as what other search terms are related to the article. And if you click on any one of these topics, you'll start a new JSTOR search. You can also ask your own question by typing your question in the chat box. So you can try asking the tool about specific topics related to your interests, like if I want to know what literature is discussed in the article, I can enter my query in the text box. Which books are mentioned? And these might be good books for me to explore and analyze. I can also ask what is said about Millions of Cats, one of the books that it populated for me. And I'll be able to find out that the author describes the cats in Millions of Cats as benign and sweet anthropomorphic cats. You can use natural language here, and you don't need to word your request in the form of a question. The numbers that appear after the answer that the tool provides is the tool citing its sources. So it's showing you where in the text it got that information. I can hover over that number and see a preview of that text as well. So that's how I can find that particular section about where it talks about millions of cats. You can also ask it to show you names and themes, which can help further your research. So for example, I can ask what scholars are mentioned in the text. And I'll get a summary of not only who is mentioned, but in what context. So then I could use this list to further my research by looking up items that the scholars wrote. Or I can ask about themes, which will give me themes from the article related to cats as characters in literature. This can be a good way for me to narrow down my topic or figure out how I'm going to reference the article. Other examples of questions to ask the tool can include, what is my central argument? And I'll get a nice summary of the central premise as a starting point for my understanding of the article. So with that, I also want to point you to some of the guardrails built into the research tool, as the tool will only provide answers based on the content of the item itself. So if the article that you are viewing does not provide the answer, the tool will not then try to pull from the rest of JSTOR or other websites. And this is something that Kelsey will talk about more in detail later. For example, if the text does not explicitly state it, the tool will not be able to confirm whether the article is peer-reviewed. So if I ask, is this article peer-reviewed? The tool will say that it might be peer-reviewed, but that we would need to determine with certainty ourselves, and it links a resource to do so. This is because there's no document metadata that answers that question. Or if I ask, is Pete the cat mentioned? Another book about a cat? The answer that I get is no, because this book is not mentioned in the text. If you have a specific section of the item that you're interested in, you can also have the tool find related content or tell you just about that section. For example, if I'm thinking about how cats are portrayed in fairy tales, I'll go and I will highlight the fairy tales section. And I'll just grab a chunk of it for time's sake. And I'll select what is this selection about, and this might also show as find related content. And this will provide an overview of just that section. To dig into a selection, the highlighted text does need to be more than a paragraph so it has enough information to condense. Once you've finished evaluating an item with the research tool, you might want to keep a record of your interaction. And you can do so by downloading your conversation history by choosing the three-dot overflow menu after the question text box, and you can choose to either download it as a PDF or as HTML. You can also select Cite Research Tool, which will give you auto-generated citations for the tool itself. You can also cite a specific response from the tool. And I wouldn't want to note that citation methods for AI tools are still evolving, so students should follow whatever guidelines are available to you from your institution or your discipline. For best results, we recommend to cite or download your conversation with the tool before leaving the item page, since the tool only displays your current conversation for that item for up to 3 hours. And finally, please do send us feedback. We look at all of it. You can provide feedback via the form linked below the research tool here, or by using the thumbs up or the thumbs down buttons on an individual answer. So that was the demo on the user side. So I'm going to switch back to my slides and talk a little bit more about some admin information. So JSTOR administrators have access to a few more pieces to help manage the research tool. As Kelsey mentioned earlier, JSTOR recognizes that institutions may have different needs when it comes to AI-driven research tools. So administrators can enable or disable access for all users at your institution through JSTOR admin. I'm showing a screenshot of that toggle now. When enabled, users logged in to JSTOR through your institution and their personal account will see the option to use the research tool, and they can also hide the tool for themselves, as I showed you in the demo, using that on and off toggle for the tool itself. If the tool is disabled for your institution, users will not see the option to use that research tool. Please note that if a user has access to JSTOR through multiple institutions, they may still retain access to the tool through another institution. Your institution can also view usage data on the research tool if they choose to enable the tool. You can do so by pulling an engagement report from JSTOR admin. On the screen, you'll see a bunch of different events that you can get from metrics for, and this should help you get a sense of how the research tool is being used at your institution. If you should be listed as an administrator for your institution and you need JSTOR administrator credentials, please do reach out to support@jstor.org and we can set those up for you. Okay, now back to Kelsey to give us more context about how we built the tool.
All right. Thanks, Nicole. Now that we've shown you how to use the research tool, I want to get deeper into the why and the how, what we were thinking when we built it, and how we built in the guardrails so that you might have a better answer to why you would use it. As we developed the research tool, it has been important for us to approach the work thoughtfully and in a way that maintains trust and collaboration with our community. We are thinking about it holistically and from many different perspectives. So thinking about researchers of all levels, faculty, instructors and their students, librarians, publishers. Although there are some consistent themes across these groups, there are also unique considerations for each for us to attend to. I am going to share some of our guiding principles, which we use to make decisions about how the product develops. I'll give you some examples of how we built in features and guardrails based on these principles. The first one is academic integrity. The tool is designed to help a user find and understand the concepts that they are researching while reinforcing the need for critical thinking and discernment. As I mentioned before, we want to aid learning, not replace learning. We want faculty and instructors to be able to use JSTOR's research tool to teach and reinforce research skills, as well as using AI appropriately in their work. In the next section of the webinar, I'll give you some ideas of classroom assignments that could integrate the research tool. We also manually add in stoppers to try to reinforce this. So the tool's functionality, as you saw, is limited to summarizing Q&A and recommended topics and other items to the single document being viewed. So other user requests like generating new content or essays are not allowed. And we have guardrails in place to prevent those responses, meaning that we've anticipated those kinds of questions and made it so that the tool will not give an answer. Another principle is traceability. We want to be transparent about how each response is generated. And in every response, the user is presented with inline references that show which part of the item text was used and links to the location in the source. And this is a direct connection for the user to understand the concept in the author's own words. Another principle is focus on the source, meaning focusing on the JSTOR item as the source of information. Or in other words, the research tool only works with the JSTOR item that you are viewing. That means it doesn't pull from other sources on the internet at all. A benefit to this is that it greatly reduces hallucinations, which are when generative AI makes up answers. Working only with the specific item also means higher accuracy. And it means that our environmental impact is lower because we're limiting the amount of information that has to get processed. So it's about getting to the right content and getting more out of it. Our guardrail here is that, as we saw during the demo, if the research tool can't answer the question, it will respond as such to the user that it doesn't have enough context to answer the question. So we want to be transparent about the limitations of the tool. I also want to talk about another guardrail, or an important aspect of the way the tool is built that reinforces this principle of focus on the source. And that is that the content from JSTOR is not used for any AI training. And to do this, to really talk about what I mean by that, I have to do a little AI literacy lesson. So come along with me. This is going to get a little technical, but I think it's important because I want to talk a little bit about how the tool is built so that you understand a bit better how we're able to keep the research tool focused on using only the single JSTOR item and how that doesn't bleed into the larger AI systems. So one of the foundations of JSTOR's research tool and of the current AI boom is large language models, or LLMs. In the early days of this technology, language models were used to predict the next word in a sentence. But then the technology advanced so that the input into the models, what allows them to make the predictions, became massive. And when you have a larger amount of source data, you can also make better predictions. So now at the present, we have something like ChatGPT, which can predict not just the next word, but the next phrase. So thinking about the generative part of generative AI. So an LLM, or a large language model by definition, is trained on massive data sets of text documents using deep learning techniques. In some cases, the input is most of the content of the public internet, and then it processes that data to do other tasks. So I just mentioned, and you've heard of, ChatGPT, which was built by a company called OpenAI. The technological breakthrough that allowed ChatGPT to be what it is actually a large language model that OpenAI built that's called GPT. The chat part allows you to interact with the GPT LLM. So ChatGPT is powered by and built on a large language model, but it's something separate. ChatGPT itself is not the LLM. So what I'm getting at, what I'm trying to be clear about, is that JSTOR's research tool does not use ChatGPT. The research tool currently uses several LLMs, including one from OpenAI, as well as Anthropic on Amazon Bedrock. We also evaluate alternatives to OpenAI and Google, which are the big providers, and use smaller open source tools whenever possible. Okay, so how does the research tool use the LLMs that we just talked about? Or maybe you're asking, is it just a version of ChatGPT that's embedded on JSTOR? And the answer is no. But the longer answer is one way of describing the larger process that the research tool runs on is that it is a retrieval augmented generation, or RAG, system. And RAG, retrieval augmented generation, is a method that combines a language model with external sources. So you're seeing a visual representation of that on the screen. When you're interacting with JSTOR's research tool, the tool is sending text data from documents on JSTOR, plus the user's query, to an LLM and saying, using your training, what is the answer to this question using only this content that I'm giving you? So the JSTOR content and the query are not being absorbed into the LLM. They remain separate, but they rely on the knowledge that the LLM has from its training. While language models can generate clear and human-like responses, they don't automatically have access to this added content. So RAG retrieves the relevant information from those sources, allowing the model to give more accurate and grounded answers. So again, returning to our guiding principles, hopefully now that makes a bit more sense when we say we're not doing training. The LLMs that we use have already been trained on various materials on the open internet. We are adding a source, but we're saying, give us information about this new JSTOR document based on what you already know. We store the responses in a database for long-term storage, which allows for quick delivery next time it's requested, but those answers are not tied to your user account now. So any data sent to LLM providers, which includes the user's prompt and some or all of the text content being viewed, is used only for generating the response. They do not use this to further train their models, nor do they retain the data for more than 30 days. And that's in accordance with OpenAI's API data usage policies and Amazon Bedrock's policy. Okay, so zooming out from the development of the research tool itself. At Ithaca, we are trying to be thoughtful about how to integrate advanced technologies into our ecosystem. And this includes the development of the research tool, but I also want to mention a couple of other things that are in development or coming out now that also touch on these topics. So we have a new feature that we're calling semantic results. This is a tab on the search results page. So it's an alternative option to our standard JSTOR search. This was previously labeled experimental beta search. So there's a chance you saw it in that iteration. The semantic results gives you the 25 most relevant results to your search query based on similarities in context in the items. You got access to semantic results at the same time that you got access to the research tool. And if you are wondering how this works or what that means, like how it figures out what the most similar, most relevant items are, I'm going to do one more AI literacy definition with you. This is for all my fellow librarians who like to think about the algorithm or like how we deliver search results and want some more context to explain it. So in the big picture, we say that the research tool is AI powered, but it actually uses several different kinds of advanced technologies, including generative AI. Another kind of technology that's being used by the research tool and also in semantic results is vector embeddings. So this, in my opinion, is like one of the most interesting concepts in this field. I think there's a lot of rich like intellectual content to break down. This is actually a separate concept from generative AI. That semantic results don't use generative AI by definition. So in short, when we talk about embeddings, we are talking about a process that converts a JSTOR text item into numerical representations of the text. So this captures the semantic relationship between words and concepts. Converting the text into a string of numbers allows us to more quickly compare items for similarities and differences, and it allows machine learning algorithms to more efficiently understand and process the data. On the screen, you can see a visual representation of embeddings and how each word gets a numerical value for different attributes, and that allows you to compare them. We use vector embeddings in the semantic search results, but also when we recommend items and topics in the research tool, and also to identify which part of the article will be relevant to the search query. We're currently using an open source language model for this process. Hopefully that helps you understand how this technology works a little bit so that you can use it and also help your students understand how to use it too. We are also currently beta testing the research tool on the search results page. On the search results page, the research tool works in conjunction with the semantic results tab to help researchers get a better understanding of the possible results and to find articles that are most relevant for them. We are also testing the research tool on the JSTOR workspace. The workspace, if you're not familiar, is a tool for saving and organizing your research on JSTOR. Currently, both of these things are only available for a small subset of beta users who have opted into testing for us. We don't have a specific timeline of when it will come out to everyone, but just to give you a preview of the developments that we are working on. And then finally, we are continuing to carefully evaluate where it makes sense to integrate generative AI and other advanced technologies into aspects of the JSTOR ecosystem. Hopefully you've heard about JSTOR Digital Stewardship Services, which is a digital asset management system for digital collections. One aspect of that service is JSTOR SQLite, which uses generative AI to accelerate the creation of descriptive metadata. We have lots of webinars and other materials about this if you are curious to learn more. Okay, now that we've shown you how the tool works, we want to look at the tool in action. So I'll show you some data to illustrate how using the tool can increase usage, talk about our understanding of common use cases, and then look at how the research tool could be used in the classroom. Looking at the data, we have found that research tool users are JSTOR power users. So remember from the demo that we check for two things for access to the research tool, that the user is affiliated with a JSTOR subscribing institution and that they are logged into their personal JSTOR account. We see that research tool users perform more searches per day than non-tool users. And so this is showing a higher level of engagement with the JSTOR platform. We also see that institutionally affiliated users visit JSTOR more often than non-affiliated users, and that research tool users visit even more frequently than affiliated users. These patterns hold true both over a weekly and a monthly basis and have remained consistent over time, even as the research tool has expanded to more users. We also see that research tool users perform significantly more item requests per day than non-tool users, meaning that they view more articles, books, images, and other items. All of this together shows that people who are using the JSTOR research tool are more engaged on the JSTOR platform and the research process at large. While we, of course, don't see their final research products, we hope this means that they are getting more out of the research process as they do more searches and look at more text. We hope that some of this data maybe will ease some anxieties you may be feeling around your students and patrons using the research tool, as we know that there are times when students disengage from the research and learning process when using AI, but that's not what we're seeing in the data. Given our data about research tool user engagement with the platform, we thought you might want to see some examples of real questions that users are asking the tool using the question and answer free text field. Last year, we did an analysis of a large group of user questions and put them into categories. About 70% of the questions are what we call content inquiry. So when a user asks about a specific term that can be answered using the content of the document, like, is Lucille in this book chapter? Whoever Lucille is in this, that the user was asking about. This includes asking about research methodology or comparative analysis or like language and textual analysis. We are excited about this outcome because it's what the tool was designed to help with, not substituting the research experience, but helping to get to the relevant content. Another 12% of the questions are asking about summaries or key points, and about 3% are asking about metadata, like information about the journal that the article is in. And I'm going to use like that information about how people are asking the questions to talk about how you can use the JSTOR research tool in the classroom. Before we get too deep in this, I want to address the K-12 educators. We mentioned in the demo that you have to be logged into a personal JSTOR account to use the research tool. You have to be age 16 or over to make a personal JSTOR account, and this is for privacy and reporting reasons. I understand that this is limiting for those who are working in K-12, especially those who are working with students who feel like they feel are ready for this kind of tool. Our official guidance is that you facilitate a mediated experience of the research tool for them. So keep that in mind for the next couple of examples. There has been a lot of discussion about how AI is changing the teaching and learning landscape. I was working as a librarian at a large public university library when ChatGPT dropped in fall of 2022. And my memory of the time is what felt like an immediate flood of new committee meetings and official emails and like private hallway conversations about how are we going to manage this new technology. The good news is that we are now a little bit separated from that. And we have more information about how AI and other advanced tech can be used in the classroom and in professional settings. We have heard a range of responses from schools, from the Cal State University system working to deeply integrate AI across the board to create what they are calling an AI-empowered higher education system, to other schools who have implemented full-scale bans on the use of AI technology in any part of the academic process. I've talked to many faculty who are going back to using blue books or like requiring in-class handwritten assignments to preclude the creep of any technology. So I want to talk about some of the ways that I have seen the JSTOR research tool thoughtfully integrated into classroom assignments. And I'll talk about two big categories here. One is to allow or encourage the use of AI tools during steps of an existing assignment. And another is to build new assignments centered around AI or AI literacy. You could, of course, also do both things in a single term. And there's lots of activities that are not included in like these two categories, but these are the ones that I'm going to talk about today. So we think that the JSTOR research tool can be a really useful tool for one-shot library sessions or other classroom activities in which you want to talk to students about how to engage with AI technology. As we talked about in the demo section, with JSTOR's research tool, you can download your conversation history so that the PDF becomes its own artifact, and that like as a standalone text or in addition to the original text. So one idea of a classroom exercise is to use the PDF of the conversation history of the research tool as a starting point for discussion around how we ask questions and receive answers from AI tools. One option that I like is the idea of doing this via the Hypothesis social annotation app, if you're familiar with that. Hypothesis is one of our Ithaca partners, and the app runs through an LMS integration. It's not included with JSTOR, they're just like one of our friends, but if you don't have Hypothesis, you can also just do this via a classic paper printout or any other format. But if you're using Hypothesis, you would upload the research tool conversation history PDF and then have your students annotate both the tool conversation and the original text. And this allows you to think together about the ways that we interact with AI-powered tools, like what kinds of questions we ask them, how we ask them, and how the tool responds. So what is the tool good at and what is it not? The JSTOR research tool has a lot of guardrails in place, as we discussed. So it's good to point out things that it will not respond to. And I also think this is a great opportunity to talk to students about the nuances of things like summaries. So it's gotten increasingly easy to find AI tools that will give you a summary of content. And I think it's important to have a conversation with students that there isn't a single definitive summary of something. Let's talk about what gets left out when we condense information, especially when we rely on another tool to do that work. In the research tool, we decided not to use the word summarize as one of our prompts. Instead, we make it easy to ask, what is this text about? And the answer generally begins with, here are key points from the text. And that's to signal to the users that the tool is working, through pattern recognition and synthesizing, but that's a starting point, not an end point. And then there's another type of classroom involvement with AI. And this is when an instructor maintains a traditional assignment, let's say an end of term essay, and allows or encourages the use of AI tools in some step of the process. Traditionally in humanities, or especially in the humanities. Courses have been built with the idea that much of the work will be completed independently outside of class time, like an essay or other writing assignments. Or another example of this is like problem sets in the sciences and math. And this works really well because it fosters learning and independence. However, it creates the perfect storm for misuse of tools like generative AI. We intentionally build assignments to be difficult and take time, but it's increasingly hard to convince students that it's a worthwhile investment when there are easier and faster ways to do things. So one model we like that takes this into account is it's explained in Tufts Teaching and Learning Center, which calls it the AI marble layer cake approach. This scaffolds in and out of class assignments and builds on the flipped classroom approach. So the idea is to have more formative assessments in class, which are less susceptible to AI, but also building in specific activities that guide the students' engagement with AI tools, which can help prepare them for real-world appropriate uses of AI. So when designing a course centered around a final term paper, you can break down the steps into discrete tasks within and out of classroom activities. Step 1, identify topics. Step 2, background research. Step 3, analysis. 4, draft. 5, final project. Each one has a deliverable. So JSTOR's AI research tool would work well in like step 1, identify topics, and step 2, background research. We built the tool to help with the research process. So you can suggest using the JSTOR platform to find sources with the help of the research tool. And then the students can submit their conversation history with the tool or citations from the tool as part of the process, which is like a good check against future paper text. This also helps students explore AI as a tool for enhancement rather than a replacement for their own work. So if we build in structures for productive and appropriate uses of AI, we help teach our students that this is another situation in which they need to critically evaluate when, where, and how to use it. We would love to hear from you about how you are using JSTOR's research tool in the classroom or for your own use. So please do get in touch if you want to share a use case. All right, that concludes the slide section of our webinar. We're going to highlight again the resources that we have available to you right now. You are getting the link to the handout again. This links to all of the support articles for working with the research tool and the administrative tasks associated with it. The last link is to our events page where you can see other webinars that we have coming up. Our annual update series starts in a couple of weeks. And a side note about the handout, that has information about setting up the research tool. So if you want to send resources to students or other people about how to use the tool, we recommend the support article links on that page or the video overview, not that exact LibGuide handout. That's more for librarians and instructors. All right, and now my colleagues are going to rejoin me.
Thank you so much for that, Kelsey and Nicole. Nicole has been answering some questions as you've been talking, and we do have some queued up. Oh, Nicole, we lost you.
That's okay. We
Let's
might
get
get
started, and she will be with us in a minute. We must have dropped her.
Yeah.
I'm still here. Sorry, you just can't see me for some reason.
No worries. No problem. Do you have some questions that we can talk through, Nicole?
Yeah, I've seen a lot of great questions, so thanks everyone for asking so many wonderful questions. I did want to start with the question, why must users be logged into their personal accounts to access the research tool? It's a great question. At this time, requiring an individual account helps us ensure a sustainable rollout while we continue to refine the tool and everything and the usage of it. Um, but so we only use it for our sake of working on the rollout. Um, and it actually connects to another question that someone asked, so I kind of want to touch on both of those questions at once. Someone else asked, you've demonstrated that Ithaca is storing user questions from your slide of sample user questions. What other data are you collecting and storing about individual users, their viewing habits, and their AI chat queries while logged in? What do you plan to do with this data, and how are you safeguarding it? So related to that, of course, you have a personal account, and so I'm sure that there is a fear that there is user data being collected, but I do want to reassure everyone that user data is completely separate from the research tool. So we really do ask that you don't provide any personal information to operate the tool, and we do not require that. Um, the language model only uses content on JSTOR. It does not use user data, and any data sent to the large language model, which only includes your prompt and some or all of the text of the content being viewed, is only used to generate the response. So they don't use it to train models. They don't retain the data for more than 30 days in accordance with OpenAI's API data usage policies. And we do not store that beyond the query itself.
And the data that we're storing, we use purely for refining the research tool and continuing to work on it. And we'd love to follow up with specific safeguards that we have in place. We will include that in the Q&A in the handout.
And another question we have is are there training videos that we can use or link to for students on how to use the AI feature? And we do have that. Kelsey has wonderfully made a training video that is available, and I'm dropping that in the chat now. I just dropped in the chat our promotional toolkit, and the thing that's nice about this is that there are support resources and the video tutorial all linked in there. So you may choose to use the video, or you may choose to just send your students to our support site as well. And I'm also linking the YouTube video itself in the chat. And look at another question. At this, someone asked, is the requirement to be logged into a personal account temporary for the rollout? At this time, it is a part of the rollout. This is something that we may end up reevaluating, but we are definitely going to keep it for now.
It's a key part of how we manage access to the tool. So the personal account is like a necessary step for now.
If I might say, the personal account is something that we have been using for the workspace now for a few years, and the workspace is an incredibly valuable tool for folks when they're on JSTOR to be able to save things that they need for future reference. It's actually changed the way I do research completely. So we also require the personal account for the use of the workspace.
I'm also seeing another question. Does the citation option in the right-hand panel give a link back to the chat query? So will it lead faculty back to what the student asked, but only if they follow it within 30 days? This is an excellent question, and it makes a lot of sense from a teaching perspective. The citation will not link them to the chat query. So from a teaching perspective, I would probably suggest having them download the chat transcript as well. It will give some information about the query itself, but if you're looking for the context of the whole conversation, I would definitely ask that they upload that as well.
And we are continuing to we'll get questions about the rights of the authors on JSTOR. And I want to be really clear that we are not using the work on JSTOR to train LLMs at all, which has been like the largest concern that people have had. And so that the text on JSTOR is not being used for training. Neither are the queries that are being asked. That's the retrieval augmented generation thing, where we're able to keep it separate from the database of training. But let me know if that doesn't answer your question about how this works with the intellectual property rights of authors of content on JSTOR. And we can try to provide some more clarity about like which line of thinking you're thinking about there. But we are really very aware of and concerned about the rights of our authors on JSTOR. And we have more information also in our terms and conditions on JSTOR as well.
Someone else asked if the tool works when you're accessing JSTOR via proxy, and the answer to that is yes, you can use the research tool while you are proxied. You just also have to be logged into a personal account, but that access method works perfectly fine, as do all of the other access methods, as long as you just also log in with a personal account.
And that goes great into our next question. Someone's asking, how can we create a personal account? Which is excellent, because we do need you to do that to get to the research tool. And you can actually use the register button at the top of any page on JSTOR to log in or to register to create a personal account. And the other part, another question I'm seeing is this is already enabled for all JSTOR participating institutions. Hi, Nicole, welcome back. We see your camera now. This is enabled for everyone, but if you are not seeing it on your page, then you are either, you don't have one of those two things, you're not logged into your personal account, or you're not linked to your institution, or there's a chance that admin, somebody besides, if you are the JSTOR administrator, if there's another JSTOR administrator, someone has turned it off for your school. If you need help determining if it's been turned off or who's the administrator, you can again contact support@jstor.org. You might even get to speak to Nicole, and it could be Nicole answering your question. We put a lot of work into providing support. These are very real people, real colleagues of ours. That is not an AI bot responding to your questions, but we work really hard to get you clear answers on that. Anything you need in support.
I've really appreciated this presentation today, y'all. And I want to say we're getting some people saying they need to run to another meeting. We'll continue to record until 1 o'clock, and everyone will get a recording. If you're leaving us now and have time, please answer our survey. Otherwise, you will get an email in about an hour about the survey, and you can take the time at that point, hopefully, to help us always improve our webinars. We want to make your time with us as productive as possible. And I appreciate the effort that you two have put into creating this event for us in today. And with that, we will get ready to sign off. Remember, you've got your handout. You're going to get a follow-up email, and it will have the recording. And please feel free to share that recording with your colleagues and anybody who might have a lot of questions about AI and its use on JSTOR. Thank you, everyone.